Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Warami Bujari Nawunya. Hello and good to see you in Darug. I'm Carl. I'm the Interactive Experience Director here at Sitback Solutions. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging you all for joining us on the webinar this morning. I am speaking to you from beautiful but slightly chilly Gadigal land this morning, where I live and work, and I acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of this land. I hope that wherever you're dialing in from today, that you have the opportunity to take a moment and appreciate the place you find yourselves in too. I'd like to offer my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, to elders past and present, and to emerging leaders. Quick introduction, we're Sitback. If you've only recently heard of us, we are a human-centered design and development agency. We work with clients across financial services, government, not-for-profit, education, and more recently, travel and tourism, transforming their existing websites, which are often underperforming and not as well as we'd hope, into growth engines, making the most of the investment people have already made and ultimately improving the experience that they offer to their customers. As a newly certified ISO 27001 business, your data is safe with us. And we're also proudly B Corp certified, which means we're independently verified to meet the highest standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. If you're not familiar with B Corp, it's a global movement working to transform our economy to benefit all people, all communities, and our lovely planet. And I'd encourage you to seek out other B Corps as consumers that we all are. You may have seen that today's webinar was originally going to include 3 speakers. However, Lindsay and Beck are currently on a client-hosted trip aboard the Garn, travelling by train through the heart of Australia from Adelaide to Darwin as part of a discovery project for an upcoming website that we're building for Journey Beyond Rail. If you take a look over on LinkedIn, you might see a few updates from them as they're traveling. In the meantime, though, I am thrilled to be joined by Fiona Walters, who is our Data and Insights Manager here at Sitback. Fiona is not only the expert in the building on today's topic, but also leads all of our experimentation work for our clients. So I can confidently say you are in expert hands. Today's topic is website insights to impact, running experiments that actually work. So we're going to be covering how to use website data to identify optimization opportunities, how to create good hypotheses, how to choose the right tools depending on your team and your tech stack, and how to collaborate across departments to improve the outcomes of your testing. We will also take you through our recommended 5-step CRO process and share a few real-world experimentation examples at the end too. Before we get into today's session, I would like to ask you a quick question just to help frame the session. Of those of you, let me get the old poll up. Of those of you on the call so far, how many of you have actually run experimentation before optimization programs? No, and I have no idea how to start. No, not yet, but I've got everything in place ready to start. Yes, I've run a few tests before, and yes, for the full-on Uber geeks in the room, I have ongoing experiments already running. You could drop your responses in the poll there. Give it a couple of seconds for any more to come through. Just share those results with you all there. Looks like the lion's share of people are not quite sure yet where to start, which is fine and actually perfect given what we're going to be talking to today. I am now going to hand over to Fiona, who will take you through how to be running those successful website experiments. Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks, Carl. So yes, it's great that kind of most of you guys are probably just starting out on this journey. So I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to give you a better understanding of experimentation today. So I'm Fiona. I'm the Data and Insights Manager here at Sitback, and I am really looking forward to taking you guys through website experimentation. So hopefully you can learn more about it and get a better understanding of how it can improve your website's digital experience as well. So I guess before we jump into the nitty-gritty, we wanted to at least first ground our presentation in the problem that we're trying to solve for, which is the majority of online users are a lot less likely to return to your website if they have a bad experience. So a bad experience isn't just about poor usability. It can actually have a roll-on effect and lead to a loss of trust for your brand. Critical information on your website might go unseen. It might actually clog your offline channels as people kind of resort to picking up the phone and calling. And it can also deter users from converting, completing those key goals, and ultimately also transacting on your website as well. So we find that teams often know the site needs to improve, know that there's going to be some changes, but need to know what changes will have the greatest impact. So today we hope to leave you with some insight on how experimentation works and how it can help drive those improvements on your website as well. Before you begin any on-site experimentation, you do need to have those foundational analytics elements in place. So website experimentation relies on really high quality, reliable data to help identify which changes will have the biggest impact. So when we work with our clients, we make sure they have robust website analytics for accurate tracking, implemented user experience tools to track performance, and also have set up kind of regular reporting cadences to help make those data-led decisions. So without having these in place, you risk a bit of wasted effort, potentially ineffective tests, and also missing opportunities for improvement as well. So once those foundations in order, that's when you're ready to start utilizing data-driven techniques to optimize your website, like experimentation. So one of the methods to delivering on-site optimization, as I said, is website experimentation. So to give you a very simplified example, let's say you've conducted customer brand research and you found that your customer base favored the color blue, which is maybe a new brand color you want to introduce. So I guess to sense check this finding before doing a kind of a complete rollout of that color change across kind of core CTAs on your website, you want to run a test to understand if that color change will actually have a positive impact on your website. So you run your test and you find that the blue button actually did have a positive impact and the results were statistically significant. So what this means is that the increase in interaction observed with the blue button is likely due to the color change than it's due by random chance. So in a nutshell, this is what experimentation is. It's statistical hypothesis testing. Experimentation is often referred to as A/B testing or CRO. At Sitback, we like to use the term experimentation, kind of groups everything together quite nicely under a singular umbrella and a singular program of work. But at its core, experimentation is the process of developing hypotheses about user behavior and putting them forward for testing on your website. Experimentation does have many benefits. From an organizational perspective, experimentation provides you with, first and foremost, really robust results. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is grounded in statistical hypothesis testing. So, it allows you to understand those statistical relationships between changes you want to make on your website and user behavior. It can also drive cost efficiencies. You might be able to test kind of a lower fidelity solution or gauge user interest prior to kind of full investment and rollout as well. And it can also be a great tool to create a shared repository of learnings that can be circulated across your business. And from my experience, really successful experimentation programs do share those learnings across a wide array of teams. Potentially, you're sending that out to agency partners as well. And also from an involvement perspective, you're seeking involvement from a wide array of stakeholders to bring in those differing insights and opinions as well. So a great testable hypothesis is the foundation to any experiment. We've developed 4 building blocks to craft a testable hypothesis so you can really create pointed experiments that drive really insightful results. First, and one of the most important pieces is to ground your hypothesis in a data point or an observation. So we're not crafting experiments based off potentially what we think might be the case. We're crafting experiments based off robust analysis of our users, potentially market trends as well, looking at qualitative and quantitative data sources to really uncover those areas that would be kind of most primed for experimentation. For example, we maybe have found in our data on our website that there's been a decline in a particular user behavior that we want to increase. So once you have that in mind, when you start to think about what you want to have in your hypothesis, the first piece is to think about the solution that might address that issue or kind of observation that you've uncovered. So what do you think will help increase the user behavior that we've observed a decline in, for example? And once you have an idea on the solution, then it's important to think about the expected outcome or the impact that implementing that change will have on the website. So, what do we expect to happen when we test this new solution? And finally, we need to make sure our hypothesis is tied back to that original finding. So, what is the rationale and does it make sense in relation to that original observation? So, with those building blocks in mind, writing a hypothesis consists of quite a simple structure. At Sitback, we like to utilize the if then because format for hypothesis writing. And to demonstrate how this is broken down, let's say it is if we make this change or implement this solution on the website, then we expect this measurable outcome because of that rationale that's tied back to that original finding that sparked the idea for the hypothesis. To give you a bit of an example of kind of how all this comes together, let's say we have a multi-step form and we observe most of the drop-off is kind of happening on step 3 out of 4. In this instance, we might put the following hypothesis forward for testing. So if we reduce the number of fields on the application form, then we will see an increase in applications because it reduces friction by shortening those form steps, which makes it easier for the user to complete, for example. So almost taking a step back now, when you break it down, there's kind of two purposes of running experimentation. First and foremost, you might be looking to move the needle on a particular metric, potentially increasing a user behavior of some kind. Or you might want to conduct research to learn more about user behavior, or maybe even gauge interest in particular site features kind of prior to full investment and rollout as well. So, to give you a few examples of these two reasons for testing, let's say you are a bank and you've observed lower click-through rates on an open account CTA that you have on your homepage. So, this data-driven observation is then translated into the following hypothesis. So, if we make the open account CTA more prominent, then we will see an increase in the number of users starting the application process because we've made it more obvious for the user to find that CTA, for example. Once we start to think about the test design, the way that this design would come to life would be a fairly straightforward A/B test. Your control will have no changes, and that holds true regardless of any experiment. Your control will always remain as it is in the live environment. And then in this instance, the test variant would utilize the more prominent CTA, and let's say we've put it in the menu area of the page. So to show you how this kind of works for a more research-focused test, again, let's say we're a bank. And we've observed users spending quite a bit of time on a comparison tool for our home loans. And we think that they might actually need more information to help them kind of make that final decision, but we're not quite sure which additional information would help. With this observation in mind, the following hypothesis would be put forward for testing. So if we add additional mortgage details to our comparison table, then we may see an increase in decision making, which would be starting that application because users maybe appreciate greater transparency when selecting that mortgage product. So a test like this would actually benefit from multiple variants. So that's where you could maybe assess the impact of including different features to see which one has the greatest impact on decision making. But I guess another piece of this test would really be looking at if any of these additional features had an impact at all. So hopefully this demonstrates a little bit on the type of testing you conduct on your website. But I guess you might be wondering kind of how you get everything off the ground and kind of kick off any experimentation activities. So again, as we said, it really is crucial to make sure those foundations are in order before kind of kicking off the program of work. But once you do have that in place, an experimentation program of work consists of 5 phases. The first phase is ideation. So that's where we bring together a group of stakeholders. It could be internal stakeholders, agency partners as well, and lead them through a collaborative workshop to start generating those hypotheses. Then we move into test planning. So once those hypotheses are prioritized and approved following ideation, we create a test plan. So this will include test design, outline all the success measures, the audience that we want to include, and also the estimated test duration as well. From planning, you move into configuration, which is just where those hypotheses and tests are configured within the testing tool. And then your tests will actually be set live and they will run until they reach statistical significance. So, as best practice, we recommend utilizing 90 to 95%, as this will provide the most robust results. So, utilizing a 95% confidence interval means that you can be 95% confident that the results are due to the experiment design than they are by random chance. So, having a lower level of significance just lowers the confidence that you have, and it increases the margin that those results are due to random chance. So, it does depend, I guess, on the variable that you're running. So it might be okay to have a lower level of significance if it's a more lower risk area that you're testing. But for experiments that will have a direct impact on conversions, your KPIs, anything that's transaction related, we do recommend that using the highest level of significance as possible. So finally, all the results from the test are then documented in a test report alongside any recommendations for implementation. And just another call out here that it's key to save your test results to a shared repository. You want to avoid double ups in testing. And it's also a great piece that you can use to pull some insights out for kind of new areas of your website as they're developed as well. So at Sitback, we have quite a collaborative process. So our UX and UI team is involved kind of throughout the stage as well. It's not just a data-driven program. So they're involved from ideation through test design through that final rollout as well. And really, from a UX perspective, our goal is to use design thinking and behavioral science to drive meaningful improvements in how users interact with the website, which will ultimately increase those conversion rates as well. So wanted to show you guys how this comes together in a little bit more detail. And we want to take you on a journey with Sarah. She is a digital marketing manager for an online bank and had partnered with Sitback to deliver her first experimentation program of work. So to kick things off, Sarah worked with us to identify the first testing theme. Since this was her first program of work, she wanted to be very targeted with the theme so she could ensure very specific kind of actionable experiments come off the back. So together we decided the first testing theme would focus on improving home loan applications, as this is a core objective of the business. Once that theme was set, that's when we dove into the available first-party data to really uncover the current state of user behavior towards those online home loan applications, looking at customer journeys, conversion rates, product popularity, and also doing a little bit of research in market attitudes as well towards the bank's home loans. And then once that research is completed, Sarah gathered her agency partners and also her internal stakeholders for our first ideation session. So in the session, we led them through all those data findings to really identify those user issues and kind of key observations. In the workshop, we did a bit of a brainstorming activity and then ultimately began drafting those hypotheses for testing. We collated the hypotheses afterwards and worked with Sarah to prioritize them for testing. So once we had the set of approved hypotheses in hand, that's when those formalized test plans are generated. So at this stage, this is where data, UX, and also our technical development teams kind of review the hypothesis, develop those experiment designs, and also ensure technical feasibility within Sarah's testing tool. And Sarah then reviewed those plans, and she ultimately approved 6 of them for configuration. So those 6 tests were configured in the testing tool by our team. And we also did run a few sessions with Sarah to help her get a better understanding of her tools so she could run kind of simple ad hoc experiments on her own if she chose in the future. The tests ran until they reached 95% significance. And then finally, Sarah received those test reports from us with the findings and recommendations. In this first batch of tests, we achieved a 33% win rate. So really great results for included a mix of kind of bolder, bigger ideas and more kind of lower risk pointed ideas as well. And then those key findings were shared across Sarah's team and agency partners. And the winning variants were rolled to the live environment as well. So I hope this gives you a bit of a kind of good indication of how these kind of programs of work can come to life and also support that ongoing optimization of your website as well. So like Sarah, many of you might be in the emerging stage. So you might have those analytics foundations in order, but you haven't conducted any tests yet. You might be looking for a little bit more information on what experimentation is and how it could benefit your business. But as you start to grow in maturity, your business might be kind of closer aligned with the evolving stage. Maybe you've conducted a few one-off tests. You do see the value in experimentation, but it really just hasn't turned into that full recurring program of work. And maybe you do need assistance with a little bit of structure on how to conduct those successful experiments as well. Or you might be more established. So you're running an ongoing experimentation program of work. You've really fostered that culture of experimentation within your organization. But you're looking to maybe increase the scale of your existing program to continue to develop new ideas, and also test a higher volume of experiments on your website as well. So Sitback's able to support kind of at all stages of experimentation and maturity. And Carl will actually take you through a little bit more about this in a few slides as well. But I guess before I hand back over to Carl, I wanted to leave you with a few considerations for tool selection. So at Sitback, we are platform agnostic when it comes to experimentation, but when choosing the right tool for your business, it's really important to start thinking about the following things. The first is, what's the scope and structure of your kind of experimentation and implementation? So do you have multiple websites? Do they need to be kind of managed under a singular account or separately? Start thinking about the monthly tested users to your website or kind of the page that you're going to be wanting to run experiments on. The next is your testing needs and complexity requirements. So, what types of tests do you think you're going to run? Are you going to run more simple A/B tests, multivariate, multi-page? How many variations do you need in your experiments? The segmentation capabilities, so how pointed and drilled down are you exposing users to the experiment? And also starting to think about if you have access to a development team for assistance. You are changing the front end code of your website when you run these experiments. So it is, depending on the complexity of the experiment, quite useful to have that development support as well. The next one is your operational preferences. So think about what cadence you want to run experiments on, because that might help point you towards monthly or kind of an annual subscription option. And finally, also think about if your CMS or your tech stack kind of natively integrates with any tools, because that might help funnel you down kind of one pathway over another. So I hope you've learned something today and can walk away with a bit of a greater understanding of experimentation and how a program of work can come to life. Thank you for making it this far, and I will hand back to Carl to wrap up our session today.
Lovely. Thanks, Fiona. Lots of information there. I just wanted to wrap up by asking you to cast your minds way, way back 2 slides at that experimentation maturity spectrum that we showed you there. And just think, where do you fit, where do your company fit along that spectrum? Think back to some of the responses from the poll at the beginning, you probably have half an idea. A bit of gratuitous self-promotion. At Sitback, we have a number of different engagement models and can help you regardless of where you have just mentally positioned yourself. If you feel that you're in that emerging stage, then we can assist with helping you select the right tools, bringing your varying stakeholders together and help you identify what experiments to run, actually delivering those experimentation programs from stage 1 through 5 of that CRO process we talked about. So you can spend your time on other things. If you see yourself as evolving, then we can help turn those one-off or ad hoc tests into a continuous testing process, so you're continuously improving. We can also help you bring your various different vendors together into what we refer to as an agency village. So everybody's working from the same data, everybody is working towards the same goal, and leveraging each other's strengths. And if you see yourself more as an established experimenter, then we can help you gain more scale, basically run more experiments, run more complicated experiments, or dive deeper into your customer data and business analytics. And across all of those different options, you've got the ability to either run those yourself, underpinned by mentorship and training from the Sitback team, or you can just rely fully on our team's expertise and we'll do the heavy lifting for you. So far, though, we've talked a lot about process and frameworks. We thought it'd be helpful just to give you showcase a few examples just to validate that these optimization programs actually work for some of our clients. The first is a not-for-profit organization. We were tasked to improve their donation form process to increase conversions and increase repeat donations. This one was just a one-off CRO program, but we saw some quite impressive results really quickly. Donations went up by 7% just in the first month, which was huge news for them. The second example is with a well-known Australian bank who were focused on improving their overall user experience, but also the conversions of credit card loan applications. With this one, we combined analysis of historical website data with UX-led expert reviews and underpinned it with some usability testing too to understand what to optimize. And with this one, we saw an uplift in credit card application starts of 43% and an uplift in completions of 57%. And then the last example here is an Australian health insurance fund. With these guys, we helped them optimize journeys that they had already identified and saw some pretty incredible results too. So a 39% uplift in product click-through rates, so from an overall listing page through to the individual products themselves, and then a subsequent 68% uplift in overall product conversion. So you can see these data-led optimizations actually deliver quite significant improvements for both user engagement and also those business outcomes. So what I'd like you to take away from today are just these three things. Firstly, experimentation helps you make decisions that you can trust without just relying on gut instincts because they're based on data. Testing can save you time and money by validating your ideas before you fully commit to them. And unlocking these data-led insights across your company supports transparency, shared understanding across your teams, and ultimately more collaboration, which is key to those successful experimentation efforts. But that's it for the presentation component of today's webinar. Time to dive into any questions that you might have. If you've got anything that's been bubbling away in your head, chuck it into the Q&A now. And well, let's be honest, Fiona will answer it. See how we go. So we've got one here, Fiona, Jen. Hi, Jen. What is the impact of external factors on experiments like pay-per-click, and how do you stop it from skewing your results in a test?
Yeah, thanks,
Any
Carl.
thoughts?
Yeah. Great question, Jen. So I guess the easiest way you can handle this is if you know you're running a campaign and an experiment at the same time. There's a couple ways you can handle it. One, you can just exclude the pay-per-click traffic from ending up in your experiment. So you can be quite pointed with the channels that you are allowing to be in the segment that's exposed to the experiment. Also, potentially, if this is like a regular campaign that you kind of have always on, you've had it always on, and you know that traffic quite well and the way they behave, it could just be okay to kind of leave that in the experiment design as well. So really depends if it's like a newer campaign, you're not quite sure what that traffic will do, exclude it. If it's, quite extensive campaign you've been running, it's kind of an always on, then it's probably all right to leave it in.
Cool. Thank you, Fiona. We've got one other. If you've got any more people, please chuck them into that Q&A box. Tarun said, how do you project manage your 5-step process? Would you map it to a tool like ClickUp?
Yes.
So I guess that's about how to follow through the process.
Yes, great question. Having some sort of project management tool, especially as you are growing in the volume of experiments that you're running, is like crucial. I've used Trello, Jira, Monday, so it really doesn't matter necessarily what tool you're using, but as long as you have a way to easily track each individual test at its stage in the process, is highly beneficial. So tests will often, finish at different times as well. So you can kind of see your queue for reporting. But yes, just having some sort of tool in place so you can see them at each individual stage is very beneficial.
Cool. Everybody loves to manage a project. So we've probably exhausted people's brains for questions today, Fiona. So we shall leave it there, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, for taking a half hour out of your day to learn a little bit more about website optimization. Like I said, lots of stuff to send you in a follow-up email, recordings, slides, and a few other resources that will hopefully help get you on that optimization journey. Enjoy your day. Thanks, everybody.